Hello everybody and welcome once again to Hospitality Mavericks podcast with me, Michael Tingser. We at Hospitality Mavericks are here to inspire leaders and entrepreneurs in the hospitality industry to create heart-centered and profitable businesses from the inside out, the kind that both employees and customers love and support. Our guest today helps hospitality operators recruit the best and most passionate people for their organization. Welcome to John Haite. John started his recruitment company Love Hospitality 3 years ago and hasn't looked back. He has 15 years of experience working in the hospitality industry, from running bars and restaurants to selling drinks to bar groups, providing him with a first-hand insight into the demands of the sector. We sat down with John to pick his brain about recruiting in the sector's current climate, the ethos behind Love Hospitality, and his thoughts towards tech becoming increasingly part of the recruitment process. Welcome, John. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, as you alluded to, my name's John. I run a recruitment agency called Love Hospitality, and I have been doing that for about 3 years now.
Can you tell me a bit about why you started the recruitment company, Love Hospitality?
Yeah, I had been working for a normal agency, I guess, a standard agency for a while, and I just wanted to do something different. I wanted to change. I wanted some of my life back, really. I was commuting in and out of London. I've been doing that for years, and I just wanted to do something a bit different in an industry that I'm really passionate about, which is, of course, hospitality.
So why recruitment and hospitality? Is there a need to do like recruitment in a different way? Was that to send you out on this mission, or was it purely of a selfish reason that you wanted to do a more controlled life, as often happens when you're self-employed? You move out of maybe more restricted corporate structure to actually set your own agenda.
I love this industry. Absolutely love it. I've worked in it for probably 15-20 years now. I've done everything from restaurant management to bar management to drink sales to all of it. So the idea to do recruitment and do it successfully and actually give something back. You know, I think a lot of agencies forget about the actual people that are involved. They focus very much on the money that is there within recruitment, as opposed to the people that are either you're trying to find a job for, or that you are trying to find a person for that particular business. You know, that's my thoughts, really.
So do you have a different approach? Do you just have like a certain way that you go in and work with your clients on when you have to hire a candidate? Is that different from what all the others do, or how do you work with your clients?
Everybody's got their own way. I'm not saying mine is perfect, but I like to be a dotted line, a part of their business. Not only do stuff that I believe is standard practice, you know, you meet the candidates, you know, you face to face, you know, is a given. But more importantly, I get to know the client. I don't need an office. I spend most of my time in their businesses. I know the general managers, I know the assistant managers, I know the ops teams, training teams. So when you are recruiting, you're not just putting a number in or a piece of paper. You're actually looking at an individual and saying, right, that individual will work really well with that individual. And it seems to work.
That's very interesting. So your approach is not just input output in a way, as many recruitment companies is built on. You actually want to know the people within the business and thereby also the culture. Is that correctly understand?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's such a candidate driven market now. You know, the culture within businesses is so important. You know, I think there's obviously a lot going on in the branded restaurant industry at the moment. It's a tough industry out there, but also from a candidate side, they are king. You know, they've got so much choice in what they want to do, and now not only have they got the choice in where they want to work, but they want more from their employees. You know, they don't just want a paycheck at the end of the day. They want to know that they fit. They want to know that there's a culture that they can develop in. They want to know there's a progression route and a dozen other things as well.
So that leads me down to another thing. You were just talking about this situation, the current environment in the industry, and here at Hospitality Maverick we call it the perfect storm. And there's a range of challenges within there. And one that's specifically relevant when we talk about recruitment and people is the workforce shortage of talent, maybe for management positions, but also in general, just enough staff to run your business. And there's a lot of talk about it's fueled by Brexit and things like that. What is your view on this whole situation right now?
I mean, it is tough out there. There is definitely a candidate shortage, but I think with Brexit, people have been talking about Brexit for months and months, and until some people have left the UK, some people are still here. Until there is a piece of paper that says this is exactly what happened, I think there's always going to be this kind of uncertainty around it. It is a tough place to be at the moment. I think it's hard to find work, but the good people out there that are really passionate about what they want to do and have got a focus and have got a drive to succeed, they're still doing well. And I think the businesses out there just have to provide more, than, as I said before, more than just a paycheck.
So the operators you're working with to do that successful, what is it that exactly they're doing when they are looking to attract candidates, and what is different about their approach to recruitment, and maybe also where is that you help them to get that recipe right in a way?
Everybody's got their own ideas of what's right. There's some great businesses out there that are bringing the right talent in. They're just looking at it in a different way, whether it be from a marketing perspective or a training perspective or just looking after their people. Just off the top of my head, I know Hawksmoor have been incredible employees for years now. Everybody wants to work for them, and they retain their staff incredibly well. Leon is another example of people that are working in a great brand, and the individuals within are looked after hugely. They've got access to so many different things now there, rather than just being paid at the end of the day. I think that is more important now, especially with social media. Candidates are looking at cultures within a business before they apply, rather than just going, oh, that looks interesting, let's have a go. They want to know everything about them. They're looking on Instagram, they're looking on Facebook, Twitter, everything. So they already know the business inside out, really, and they've gone, yeah, that's where I want to work. And the businesses have to make sure that those social media elements are right, as well as everything else, in order to attract the right people, I think.
So they are much more picky now, and they assess the business more carefully than just saying, well, this is a great opportunity, great salary. They actually assess that if I'm the right fit to that organization.
Yeah,
culture is becoming like one of the key things actually to being able to cultivate and build as a business.
Absolutely. I think it used to be, from an interview perspective, you go for an interview and then you do a trial to see if it was right. Whereas now it's not a trial, it's an observation shift, and it becomes an observation from both the client's perspective to see if you get it, but also from a candidate's perspective to see if it's right for them. Again, suddenly it becomes a two-way street, rather than just you're on trial, if you're good enough you can have the job. It's like, well, come and have a look, see what you think, get involved, meet the team, meet the managers. Do you like it? Is it right for you? And then after that, then we can look at another option. Now, of course, they've still got to do the job right. You're not going to employ anybody just based on culture alone, but it's important that it works both ways now, I think.
Do you think that the recruitment, the process of attracting applicants, selecting them, retaining them, has changed significantly over the years in the hospitality industry, as the industry have gone into a more difficult trading environment, but also that the evolution of the industry in general and more choice?
I don't know if it's changed quite yet. I think the recruitment world is moving. It is, even from things like podcasts, videos, people are using those more now than just static job boards, as an example. There's some great job boards out there, and they still provide a purpose, but I think even they are looking at ways to get businesses on there and allow them to utilise more than just a space for a piece of paper, a job description, a salary, apply now. There's got to be something more. A lot of people are going through those resources, but I think, as I say, if you look at some of the more forward-thinking businesses out there, they are using Facebook, Twitter, Insta, even LinkedIn, to attract the right people, and I'm sure they're being successful at it as well.
So, when you work with your clients, what do you see the biggest pain point is in the industry right now where they are? What is beside they are trying to hunt down the right people? You always are doing that, even if it goes really well,
Yeah.
or it's not an easy. So what are the pain points as you see it right now when you go inside hospitality business and you look, because you look the world in a different way when you go into the businesses
Yeah,
than
you can't help it.
the operator?
I think, I mean, chefs notoriously are very, very hard to find because in a market environment, they have a lot of choice. There is a massive skill shortage in good chefs. There's some amazing chefs out there, but there are even more jobs for them, and they can have their pick and choose about where they want to go, which is great for them. But from a client perspective and from a restaurant perspective, it's very, very hard to find those people, I think, and that's been the case for years now, I think, or 2 or 3 years at least, if not longer. I think with the management side, it's still hard because, again, people when they're in a business, they are now being retained better because they are being offered more than just a job. They're being offered progression or extra bits and pieces to keep them. But yeah, again, chefs, I think, is the main pinch point at the moment.
Do you think that Brexit is the reason with the shortage of chefs, because chefs often has been people coming from other European countries, or do you think, you mentioned a bit before, that it seemed like something that happened longer ago, that we started having challenge around the skill gaps?
Yeah, I think with chefs, I don't know if it's Brexit related, and I think, as I said before, with Brexit, it's still so up in the air. There's so much going on, and I think it'll be very hard to make a tangible relationship between staff shortages and Brexit. I think it will happen when we've got a piece of paper that says this is what we can and cannot do. But at the moment, I think it's a bit woolly. I think with the chef side, I think they've always, I don't know whether it's through schooling, I don't know whether it's through education, through training, and going way back to sort of grassroots levels, but there's some amazing chefs out there now, and equally there's amazing businesses that are developing chefs as well. I think as a culture now, there's a lot more about food, health, well-being, basically good product, which has given chefs a much bigger and broader market to work in, and it means that businesses need better chefs to provide that as well.
When you are hiring people, normally it's on a management level, and they are, as we talked about before this interview, we talked a lot about the importance of getting the management team right, because when you get that right, you don't leave a business or a restaurant, leave your manager.
Yeah.
So how did you help your clients and operators actually making sure that when you come with the candidate that this is the right fit? Do you have an approach? Is there something? Do you have some check boxes you go through? Because there's probably a lot of people out there. What is it that he does to make sure that cultural fit? That's very intangible stuff to work with.
Yeah, no, true. I mean, we love hospitality. We say we know the businesses. As a culture fit, it's the hardest thing for any individual and for any business to quantify. As a restaurant manager or a general manager or business manager, you've got your boxes to tick, but essentially if you don't get the culture, you're never going to work in that business. It's hard. It's what all recruiters will aim to do, and it's the reason I think I'm very good at it, or I'd like to think I'm very good at it, is because I spend all my time within my clients' businesses. If I'm working or interviewing candidates, then I will be within the business that they are looking to work in. As I said before, I know the general managers, I know the assistant managers, I know the operations teams in most of my clients. And if I don't, then I want to get to know them. If it's a new business and they want to talk to me about recruiting, if they're just going to give me a list of vacancies, it's like, well, I can do that, but I'm not going to do as good a job for you unless you allow me to go and get involved in the kitchen teams or meet the managers or understand the people that already work in this environment, which again I think is massively important.
So that's very interesting. So you're spending all that time, because one of the things I've seen over the years when being in the industry is often recruitment is rushed, and it's something you do in last minute. You don't spend the time up front you need to do, even if it's you're recruiting for your own business, but also what I've seen from recruitment people, because that's very unique to go out and sit in the environment you're actually going to interview a person for, because that's going to change the whole situation to a positive, as I see it, because you will find out very quickly when they walk in that door, in my world, does this feel right? I know that's a feeling thing, but Do you have the view that actually that recruitment is still a rushed process in hospitality, or do people take the time they need to take these crucial, important decisions? Because people, they form culture, as you just said.
I think I'm probably one of the reasons I set up on my own, really. I think there's a lot of businesses out there that, and you're sat around a desk, there's 10 of you in an office, as an example, and you all get in, and first thing you all do is you log on to a job board and you find candidates, and you're all looking for the same one. It's a rush to find them, and then you call them, and then you send them out immediately, and it's like, go, go, go. And there's no thought involved in that whatsoever. You're just a robot. You come in, you take the CV, you send them out, done. And that doesn't help the candidate, and it doesn't help the client. It's just, in my opinion, it's just not a great way of recruiting. Mm-hmm. Now, yes, it will make you money, because if you do that enough, then naturally you will the income will come too. But I just don't believe it. I just don't think it's right. And I think when you step away from that environment, if all of a sudden, like I did, instead of working in a business, you step away from that and you go, oh, there might be a different way of doing this. And it's, in my opinion, it's a nicer way to do things. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it's why I do it. Because I just think it works. I think it has a nicer feel to it.
Besides having a nicer feel, have you seen like evidence that people actually going to be often more successful in the role when you're taking that time to understand the culture, to understand the candidate, than the average person? There's always, we call it 90 days turnover. Either you are with the business after 90 days, or you're actually already gone, especially in a management position, because the culture is going to push you out, as you said earlier.
Yeah, I think my retention rate's pretty good. I like to think so. One of my, there's several things around that, I suppose. The retention rate specifically, one of my 2 or 3 actually, my sort of star people, if you like, they've gone and opened restaurants, they've opened massive businesses for people, and it's great. And yes, obviously they had to pay a fee initially, but one chap who was with the business for 2.5 years, he opened 3 or 4 multi-million-pound businesses, and for a fee, I think it was I'd like to think it was worth it, and he's done really well. On the flip side, again, on a sort of different note, another reason I go into these businesses is because I think people are almost waiting to get a phone call about a job. If I'm in the site and I know the ops manager and they just happen to walk in, you go, oh, hi, they know exactly who I am, they know exactly what I'm about, they know exactly what I'm doing, but then they go, oh, by the way, so-and-so's just left and we need some help, or do you want to grab a coffee? Great, let's have a coffee. And you spend half an hour with them, you just get to know them a bit better, which again is another reason why I think that way, certainly for me and for Love Hospitality, I think that's how I believe it should work.
So very personal, authentic way. When we go into the operator, we talked about recruitment before, because one of the things that I talk with a lot of people around in the moment is that they don't have a framework, they don't have a system from when they do recruitment, because people I met recently, they say we have challenging recruitment, and they don't have a defined process. They haven't decided that. How are we going to recruit as a business? Is that something you see as well, even in bigger operators as well, not only a small operator that has one unit, of course, be very busy and struggling to find time to build frameworks and systems? Is that something you see as well sometimes?
What, with regards to process around the recruitment?
Yeah,
most of the companies I work with have got a relatively good process. And I think part of my job as a recruiter, or a recruitment business, is to educate as well. If somebody says, well, we're not really sure about the process, then it's my job to say, well, look, why don't we do this? Why don't you look at this as a process? This company does this company does that. Will it work for you? And it's a much nicer way of doing things. And it just gives them an idea of how to work. And also it allows me to have a bit more of a better feeling about this is what's happening, this is what's going to happen. And it's nicer for the candidate as well to then understand how over the next week, 10 days, 2 weeks, however long it's going to take to get that role, this is how it's all going to work.
I guess also the candidate feels there's a bit more professional experience, and also that the business really, really cares about how
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm handled and the hospitality in general, because we are in the hospitality world, so it's about hand-holding people
Exactly,
and make them feel special.
Rather than just rocking up and going, right, I'm here for an interview, not really sure what's going on. Suddenly you've got a process, you know who you're meeting, where you're going. The owners or the managers of the businesses seem to be quite receptive of that as well, which is great.
So that leads me naturally to talk a bit more about technology and hospitality industry, because a lot of people talk about technology and how that could be the saver of the industry, or could definitely give some advantages we haven't had before. And of course that includes the recruitment process, where there's a lot of things going on as well. What is your view on technology and how that actually can help with the heavy lifting when it comes to recruitment?
Well, I mean, it helps and hinders. I think hospitality naturally is a people environment, so you cannot put technology in instead of people. It just doesn't work. I think even on a Skype interview, which sometimes has to be done, that's great, but you still don't quite get the same feeling or understanding of what somebody is about. Having said that, the technology around recruitment now, as I said, you can use Instagram, you can use Twitter, you can use Facebook, you can use LinkedIn. You can get hold of people immediately. You can also get to understand more about. It works both ways. You can understand more about the candidate because you can see all of their profiles everywhere. And then on the flip side, the candidate can understand way more about the client and what they're about. So again, it becomes a two-way street, and that's why recruitment is harder now, because. And why it's different now, because I have to be involved in that business and I have to be a culture fit to that business. Otherwise, you can't represent either or, I don't think. But it's great. You say there's technology around now and it's being utilised and it seems to work. So, but I say I don't think it will ever replace a face-to-face meeting, especially not in this industry. That's for sure.
That's really interesting. So what about the experience from the candidate as they, want to join a company? Can technology help businesses actually improve that experience because they maybe can communicate better and faster with the candidate? Because one of the classic things I know from being all my life in the industry is often we don't come back maybe to candidates we didn't consider, or they were not the right fit right now. And that communication is gone, and in my world then you've actually damaged your brand, not only your employer brand but also your brand as a business in general. And it's a classic example of not reaching out to people you are not considering.
Yeah, I think there's a great tool out there at the moment which I'm utilising, a company called Harry. It's mainly aimed at restaurant businesses so they can streamline their recruitment process, I guess. But from my end, it's a great business to be working with on the basis that it just adds some professionalism to what I do. It means that candidates have got a much more simple process. There's access to an app. It just makes everything easier for them to find the right job, basically.
So culture is very important to have that fit. So when you are looking at culture, what are the warning signs you have to be aware when you're looking from your perspective and your values as a business when you're sitting with a candidate? Yeah,
I can answer that. I mean, I'd probably look at CV, length of service. You go back to the basic things, but I think...
Yeah, but often the people don't do the basic things. Don't call a previous employer or old teammates.
Yeah, you would always reference check. There's somebody walks into a building and you get a feeling, and then you look through their CV, and if they've got some longevity on there, or they've got some good progression, or even if they've done some travelling. Like for me, if you've gone and travelled and seen the world for 6 months, 12 months, however long it is, if you've taken a break, go and see some other cultures. When you come back, if you expect to rock up and having had 12 months and go right back into the same position, it's probably not going to work for you. And that would perhaps be a bit more of a warning sign. But I think if you're humble enough to realise, I've had an amazing career, I've had a great break, and now I'm back and ready to do something right, companies will love that. I think they, and if they don't, I think they're crazy. I think you can learn so much from being away.
Just to pivot that to slide to a different way, was a question I just think about, I want to ask you. So when do you actually know when you have the wrong person on the bus or on your team? Where's the warning sign, especially when it comes to management? If you are running, let's say you're running a group of restaurants, you have 10 restaurants, you're the owner, and things are happening in the organization, but you don't know where the problem is. But is there a warning sign sometimes you have the wrong manager on board?
I'm sure there are. I'm sure there's plenty of warning signs that are there. And I guess as a good ops manager, a good general manager, wherever the issue is, the idea is to identify that problem immediately. But then equally, it's how you manage it. Technically, if you've managed a business, problems occur definitely. But if you've got, in my opinion, again, if you've got the right team fit, the right culture fit, there will be far less problems, and that stems from the top. Whether from all the way from managing director all the way down. If they install a good belief and a good team ethic and a culture of family. Hospitality is about family, and a lot of those businesses, they without the problems, they thrive, I think.
So it's interesting saying it's the families, because I know that the very progressive, hospitality groups or operators, it's not the top boss that takes the hiring decision in the end, it's the team. You're working with anyone that does that, which is a very different approach, where exactly your team members or maybe even your employees have a very big say of if you're going to get that job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of my main clients. Yeah, the first stage interview and the observation. It's very, very heavily influenced by the management team and the staff around them. And if they don't like them, then or they don't feel they fit, or they struggle to understand the culture there, or they've struggled to understand the role, then absolutely. It's very rare that business will employ somebody and say, here you go, there is your new assistant manager. If it just does, in fact, it doesn't happen. I understand it's a smaller business, so they've got a bit more flexibility. I think when you get to larger scale businesses, they do just not force an assistant into you, but they're like, we've employed somebody, this is where you're going. And whilst that is fine for a bigger company, I would almost encourage businesses to train their general managers to do more of the recruitment, and then that takes away the need for a massive recruitment team. Again, there's got to be some structure in there, but I just think that the general managers should have the abilities and confidence to recruit who they want to recruit.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you, because leadership in the end is about understanding people and setting your team.
Exactly.
Before we end this podcast, we always have one question, and there's only one answer. You can only answer one thing. So what if you would give an advice to somebody that wants to start their hospitality business today, and you maybe want to put the recruitment angle on this, what advice would you give them?
The advice is always just go and do it. I think there's so much thought around, I haven't got the money, it's not the right time, I need to do this first, and then I need to do that next, and then I can do it. And you're just putting things off. I think if somebody, from me personally, I was struggling to find the cash to finance the business, and somebody just said to me, well, we'll just find the money. And a week later I had the money, and then I was like, oh right, I guess I've got to start a business then. And it was the best thing I ever did. That is the best piece of advice. Just go and do it. Stop procrastinating and make it happen.
Thank you for your time today, John, and all your good advice.
Thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure to have you here. That's all we have time for today. Thank you, John, for sharing your journey and thoughts on the industry and recruitment in today's Hospitality Maverick podcast with me, Michael Tingser. We hope you have enjoyed today's podcast, and if you would like to find out more about us, head to hospitalitymavericks.com. Thanks for listening, and be Maverick.